Good morning. Daniel Pepitone with Harpe Bioherbicide Solutions. Spent a few minutes today talking about who we are, what we're working on, and to give you a better idea of how it could potentially really provide new opportunity for you as growers and the mint industry overall. First, again, really appreciate the time, the opportunity to speak to you. I got to talk to a number of folks on our various visits. Prior to this, it was good to see some familiar faces, but do thank you again for having us. A little bit more about me. I'm one of the co-founders of the company, also the chief operating officer. Born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. I'll stop there for a second because it usually gets an inquisitive look about, okay, what does this guy know about agriculture? But agriculture has been a very important part of my life throughout. From the age of 10 through 18, what my mother, raised by a single mom, was I think smart enough, kind enough to send me to the family farm each and every summer. Family farm was nowhere near here, nowhere near Brooklyn, New York. I was overseas in Israel, so I got to raise poultry every summer over just outside of Jerusalem. Wonderful, different experience. Actually took some time off from college. Lived there for almost a year. First Gulf War breaks out, get a gas mask, time to come home, go back to college, and go from there. Fast forward a little bit, spent about 15 years of my career with BASF, virtually all of it in North Carolina, where we're based, in their agricultural division, range of roles, marketing, industry relations, and really helping new active ingredients come to life, build those brands up overall, and now helping lead Harpe and where we're headed. That's where I met Dr. Chad Romer. He's the science person behind all of this, really an award-winning scientist, an amazing mind when it comes to herbicide development. That's what he did at BASF for a number of years, and it's through his inspiration that we're able to start and really think about what we can do with natural ingredients. Joined today by Bill Buckner. He's our CEO. Spent many years as the head of Bayer Crop Science in North America, as well as leading the Noble Foundation. And you can see here, brought together really some perhaps familiar names to you around the industry overall, really putting together a good team of leaders to help drive this forward. At the same time, there's a lot of good people who do a lot of good work in the labs, supporting us in many different ways, whether it be on the regulatory side, or on our supply chain, really tapping into, again, leaders of the industry to help us drive this forward, as well as our several partners that help bring these new formulations, these new herbicides to the marketplace. So why are we doing this? For us, it really started here, having spent 15 years working closely with growers. Agriculture is complex, it's tough, it's hard, it's not getting easier. And we think about the many things that yourselves, that farmers, have to balance each and every day when you're out in the field. It really is one of the toughest jobs on the planet. At the same time, we see technology advancing in many ways, new smart sprayers, drones, analytics. But when we think about herbicides, which is the largest crop protection input segment of the market itself, we don't see that same advancement. We see something very different. When we think about what does Ronald Reagan have to do with herbicides, but when we think about weed resistance, that's probably the Achilles heel to the industry overall. It's virtually impossible to farm unless you're killing your weeds. And we have not seen a new mode of action herbicide discovered since Ronald Reagan was president. So it's been a while. Again, largest segment of the industry overall. Weed resistance really the number one driver when it comes to the challenges, which it stems from a lack of innovation, which ultimately results in production going down. But probably more recently, the conversation has shifted or has been added to also have a consumer-driven part of the conversation. Perhaps started in Europe, but has certainly expanded over the last decade. And is not going to decrease in any sense of the imagination. We're thinking about our environment differently, we're thinking about our soil differently. Consumers want natural products, they're asking different questions, and that has certainly stemmed over into the regulatory side of things, where we see different challenges, certainly here in this country, but Europe is perhaps losing more chemistries on an annual basis than they see new ones. Paraquat being taken out of the market in Asia. Really, regulatory challenges abound. Well, that's where we see Harpe fitting squarely into this marketplace. It's natural, safe, broad spectrum, non-selective, we call it an active ingredient bioherbicide. It's all based on plant extracts that we find in several species, but mint is our main source. We could also build and have built the formulations using the nature identical compounds, because it is those compounds that, when formulated, become herbicidally active. And what's really exciting about it is this bioherbicide platform offers new modes of action. The way the chemistry works, and we'll talk a bit about it in a second, is there's multiple modes of action built into these formulations. We built out a portfolio of products, pre-emergence, post-burn down, as well as desiccation. And everything that we built can be used as standalone products, solo, for say organic growers and otherwise regenerative farming, as well as in combination with your chemistries that you use today. We see very consistent control of both broadleaf and grass species, whether they be fully developed weeds or seeds. And then the science gets really intriguing when we think about the next step that we're working on now is building herbicide tolerance in crops to a Harpe application. So again, we see the market is wide open. We really see ourselves fitting into this $30 billion market opportunity, whether it's on the home and garden side where consumers want a non-glyphosate product. Certainly squarely in the middle is row crop specialty, organic regenerative farming for us. And then the herbicide tolerance piece of it really extends the life and the opportunity of what we're talking about. So where Chad started was there are active ingredients in these natural plant extracts. He's identified 5 different unique species, but mint is the main one that we tap into, and we'll talk about why in a second. But those molecules that are in there, when formulated, serve as the backbone of all the formulations we make. Again, alternatively, we can use the synthetic versions, the nature identical versions of those compounds to build out all the formulations that we've created. Probably as you well know, the ingredients are seen in daily life. They're incredibly safe. They're in the products, the oils that you develop are used today to go into those products. Similar to the last speaker, what's exciting is all the active ingredients that we utilize are already approved by the EPA to go into the market. They live on what's called the 25B list. And so if we were to walk out today with the organic, natural formulation, we can go ahead and do that without any further review by the regulatory bodies, which is quite exciting when you think about new herbicides coming to the marketplace. We see a similar expedited type pathway in other markets, whether it be Europe, Australia, or elsewhere. And so when we think about how we were coming to the marketplace, incredibly exciting to think about that the regulatory side would be one of the easier pieces, and big asterisk there, working with the government is never easy, but certainly an opportunity to go forward. Again, mint is our lead source for the compounds we're after. Picture of underside of the mint leaf, a little close up there of where those molecules live, and those are the molecules we tap into to create the herbicides. For you is the organoleptic, I'm going to struggle with that every time, but the flavors, smells, tastes that you're after. For us, it becomes industrial. We're not interested in how it tastes, how it smells. What we want is quantity. We want as many of those molecules as you can produce in a single acre of mint to be able to tap into those, formulate those, extract those, and utilize those in our herbicide formulation development. For us, each and every one of those formulations starts in the lab. A series of tests that are done, formulations built out with our partners down in CJV in Valdosta, Georgia. We then bring those into our labs to begin the testing on seedlings, into the greenhouse, how they spray, how they work, and really understand their efficacy as herbicides. And what we've been able to do to this point is this is the portfolio of herbicides we've been able to build out. On the left-hand side, a series of pre-mix formulations. Again, these are from the molecular level up. These are not tank mix. These are pre-mix developed formulations with some of the most well-known chemistries that we use today. And this is where it begins to get really exciting because that helps us reset those chemistries in different ways. The biggest of which is overcoming that weed resistance challenge. So when we mix Harpe in combination with glyphosate, we're able to really return the efficacy that we once saw in glyphosate that we no longer have. At the same time, we see us being able to lower the rates of glyphosate, so you're using 1.5, 2x the original rates. We can go back to that 1x rate, add Harpe into the mix, and still get the efficacy we're looking for. In the middle section there, you see the organic formulations of 3 different pre, post, as well as desiccation. And all of these formulations are a little bit different, so we use the word tailored, because the amount of Harpe that we're using with a glyphosate or with a metolachlor or something different changes. The makeup of it changes a little bit in our formulation, so we can get the most efficacy at the best cost to be able to produce these products. Again, when we think about what we're doing here, really changing the game for organic growers, regenerative farming, these tools don't exist. And for farmers that are struggling with weed resistance or wanting to do something different for their soil health, we're certainly starting to answer those questions. From there, we go into global field trials. We've been doing global field trials for multiple years now, really extensive across the United States. We've done work in South America and throughout Europe. Those are repetitive trials that we do each year. 23 is well underway for us already. We're doing counter season work down in Honduras into Argentina starting this week. And we've rented a series of acres down in Florida and have begun that work just recently again to test these new formulations as we advance them. So how does Harpe work? What's the modes of action that we're talking about? Again, multiple modes of action built into this chemistry, which makes it very unique from a stewardship standpoint, but certainly exciting from just a technology development, again, to give farmers what they're looking for. What generally happens with the modes of action, what you'll see is the plasma membranes of the cell get weak and fluid, so they can no longer hold water. They lose their ability to hold that water. They begin to wilt. A similar type of action happens at the chloroplast as well as at the mitochondria, but the chloroplast can no longer hold onto its chlorophyll and can no longer produce the photosynthetic process that it needs to continue living. The mitochondria, same thing, ATP is no longer produced. Again, it's fluid, can't function the way it's supposed to. Energy stops to produce and really does kill the weeds. It's pretty dramatic, it happens pretty quickly. I think the best way to show you that is to play this video. We'll see if I can do that without skipping to the next slide. But what you're looking at is going to be a time-lapse video taken over 3 days. These are red root pigweeds. Left-hand side, not treated, Harpe by itself, Harpe and glyphosate in combination, and glyphosate alone. And you should be able to really tell what's working. At a 30-second time point, that's about 8 hours, and then I think that's when we'll move on to the next slide because those weeds aren't coming back. So you can really see that wilting happens pretty quickly. You can start to see some discoloration, and that's where the chloroplast starts to spill out into the leaf a little bit, and obviously control is happening pretty quickly. Some of our early work that we did, we've further advanced the formulations from here, but it's a really good demonstration of what's taking place. You know, when we started out on this, really exciting to see Harpe work alone. Even more exciting to see work in combination with glyphosate, not getting in the way of that chemistry that's systemic, allowing it to do its job well. So what we're able to do is really kick the barn door open for something like glyphosate, for it to continue to charge through and control the weeds like we want them to. We can watch this video for the full 4 or 5 minutes that it is. That glyphosate weed, while slowing down a little bit than the non-treated, not much is going to happen in that period of time. It needs a little bit more time for the control to take place. So again, these are the things that we're excited about when we think about efficacy. is we're changing the efficacy of how we can control weeds. But in this case, do it a little bit faster or broaden the spectrum because we can control grasses and broadleaves as well. To this date, we've probably run 500 plus field trials. I think we've stopped counting given the amount of work we're doing, but it's a good amount of work both in the greenhouse and in the field. We've counted 60 plus different types of weeds that we control, both over the top as well as pre-emergent, many of which have been herbicide resistant. We get weeds, we work closely with NC State and other universities getting weeds that are confirmed resistant to be able to control them. Again, we talk about really changing the efficacy for herbicides, improving the speed, expanding the spectrum, and resetting those rates is incredibly exciting when you think about needing to save those tools and resetting those tools for farmers to be able to use. Again, incredibly flexible in how we can use it, and certainly game-changing for organic and regenerative farmers that just need new tools that don't exist. Show you a few images here. This is the Harpe pre-application by itself in one of our sites in South Carolina. On the left-hand side, the untreated, in the middle, corn gluten meal, because that's the best they got right now. Smells awful, clogs nozzles, doesn't work very well. And then on the right-hand side, you can see a Harpe application. Highlighted that you see morning glory coming up. That's actually incredibly exciting for us. Those are deep-seated weeds. You can also see in the back some peanuts coming up. That's what was a peanut farm before we did our trials. And those seeds live much deeper in the ground than those shallow-seeded pigweeds. And what that's telling us is that Harpe is staying where we put it. It lives, when we make an application of the first half inch to an inch of soil, doesn't move very far in the soil, so from a stewardship perspective, that's wonderful to see. Here's a combination of Harpe with glyphosate. You can see the control, really, these are weed farms, really intense pressure on the left-hand side, a little bit less than 1x rate of glyphosate. Those are glyphosate-resistant weeds we can pour on as much as we like, they'll just keep growing. And then in the middle, certainly the control we're looking for. And then this is the image of potato desiccation from Wisconsin. It's before treatment, 3 days after, and then 7 days after. So really, we're getting the control of that knockdown to be able to go harvest this field. This is a combination with carfentrazone, a very low rate of carfentrazone. Carfentrazone doesn't work very well. So you mix it with Harpe, suddenly you revive, you just give new vigor into these types of chemistries and really change the dynamic that can be done. We also know it's incredibly important to fit into what we're doing today. It's not a microbe, you don't have to keep it alive, you don't have to keep it at a certain temperature. It's chemistry as we all use. It can go in your sprayer that you have right now, mix, spray, off we go, we're killing weeds. Also fits into production cycles, distribution cycles, so from the agricultural industry that we built, it fits right in. We don't have to do anything special or different to get growers the products that they're looking for. At the same time, we're thinking about the future. The conversations we're having in our industry today are certainly different than just a handful of years ago. So we're thinking about soil health differently. We're thinking about the way we grow crops differently. So whether it's expanding organic acres, really beginning the story of cover crops, we're able to think about that going forward, and Harpe fits perfectly into that storyline. We've done a lot of work with trace genomics over the last couple of seasons, doing soil health testing, and really excited to report that there's no harm being done to the soil. If we think about what's in the soil and what we're putting on it, the essential oil, spearmint, peppermint, these things have been around for millions of years, and as well as the little beasties inside the soil that are happy to eat them. Really, again, a great story when we think about soil health and maintaining that topsoil. That's a must. Part of the way we're going to change farming over the next decade plus is precision agriculture. It's already here. We see the smart sprays by John Deere, what Bosch is working on, and certainly the drone applications. Chad and his team working on low volume formulations. We've done a lot of work with Rantizo over the last couple of years, really creating the 3 to 6 gallon per acre spray applications, and see some terrific results with those products as well. I can't think of a luckier time for us or a better way to use such advanced spray applications and with a natural herbicide to really get the most out of it and preserve some of the other chemistries that you might need for a broadcast spray. Herbicide tolerance, this is incredibly game-changing for us as well as a company, as well as what it could do for agriculture. We started at the beginning, Rob Fraley, the former Chief Technology Officer from Monsanto for many years on our board, working closely with us and Chad, and we partnered with Solus AgriScience out of St. Louis to develop herbicide-tolerant crops. As you can see on the right-hand side of the picture, those are our Harpe-tolerant Arabidopsis species. Those are our model crops that we're starting with. We've begun harvesting the initial seeds, planting round 2 and getting set to harvest those in a couple of months, and that's really where we're going to start testing the gene platforms and understand how tolerant these products are. But what we've seen to date is incredibly reassuring. We're only going to take this to a certain point versus taking it all the way into germplasms and hybrids and those types of things, because that's where companies that are more adapted to it will be able to take that in advance. We're going to take it to a proof of concept type stage to really showcase what can be done. When we think about supply chain dynamics, this is probably what impacts you most, given that you're growing the source ingredients that we utilize. And we see a supply chain duality, that we can develop the products with the natural oils as well as the nature identical. We see them as completely interchangeable depending on market needs. If we think about specifically North America, home and garden markets wanting something different than glyphosate, organic regenerative farmers needing products. Certainly a wonderful opportunity. When we think about Europe, they're going to be the driver of these natural oils. When we think about the Americas as well, synthetic chemistry plays a large part today. We see that continuing in the conventional acres as well. We're engaging with a range of partners, some of which are here on a global scale, really understanding, first learning the markets themselves, and then having conversations to make sure that we share the right information, update folks like yourselves, so that you are prepared and aren't blindsided in any way as this comes to the marketplace. From the scale, as we build out our forecast models, we see us with the opportunity and potential to almost outstrip the entire market on a global scale if it takes off over the next 10, 15, 20 years the way it possibly could. So we want to make sure that we're having these conversations as early as possible. One thing to really understand also is that we're not going to be the commercializers of this product. Our business model is to develop this to a certain point, get it to a commercial ready phase, and divest the technology to one of the larger crop protection companies that have already done a great job, as we know, building the infrastructure to bring products to the marketplace, whether it be distribution, sales, marketing, all those pieces. They'll do a better job, a much better job than we ever could in terms of reaching the farmer in really a relative short period of time. From the products we use, any one of those 3 versions of mint can be done. But again, when we think about what we're after, it's quantity. It's not quality. Again, not caring about the smells and flavors. We want the molecules that live inside those plants. And so our Arbensis is certainly the lead species that we're tapping into, given its robust yield as well as just what it offers in terms of content. And then when it's all said and done, we really see this as an opportunity for a bioherbicide that gives back. Whether it gives back to you because you have a new market expansion, it gives back to the environment because it's just simply better for our soils, for our water, for whatever we might be thinking about. It's just a wonderful opportunity, certainly here, as well as we think about small shareholder farmers on a global scale that also grow mint. There's ways that we can develop programs around this to really support them dynamically. So with that, I'll say thank you. Really appreciate the time and open up the floor for questions, comments, feedback. Wide open.
You mentioned,
You can clap, that's cool.
you mentioned that it had some pre-emergent activity. How long is it?
Yeah, as a solo product, we're seeing about 3+ weeks of control. Once you get into combination, we're seeing wonderful, when we combine with something like metolachlor, we're seeing being able to extend metolachlor's pre-emergence control over the past 5 weeks. So really what we need in the industry. Again, we think about it from organic growers, that's probably the product that is game changing for them. Being able to start, as you all know, your season clean, with clean field, killing those weeds before they emerge is game changing.
So what's your advantage of using the natural over synthetic?
From an efficacy standpoint, very similar. Really the advantage becomes more about market needs. When we think about Europe, they have completely shifted away and will continue to shift away from synthetic herbicides. But those people still like to farm and still want to eat, and so they need products that help support them. So that's probably the biggest difference, is just where those needs are. When we think about moms that don't want to buy a glyphosate product because of what they read in the news, that's certainly an opportunity for them to have a natural product versus a synthetic.
You can use synthetic too, or whatever.
Yes.
So do they both work?
They both work equally well. Yeah, it's the molecular structures. They're called nature identical because one-to-one the compounds look exactly the same, and they perform the same when in formulation.
So the synthetics can be cheaper for you than the natural, right? So,
I think there's pretty much price parity, but we do see that the synthetic versions would probably be more used, like conventional acres, versus the natural, but there are markets that will demand the natural and only the natural. A lot of upside there as well.
We trialed a good number of the non-synthetic herbicides out there. We've seen that the efficacy varies a whole lot, specifically with temperature.
Yeah.
And in organic systems, to get in and kill weeds early in the season versus when the weeds have already grown up at that point. So how does your product work in those low temperature ranges versus the high ranges?
No, I appreciate that question. Great question. I appreciate your applause as well. I'll just say that again. So, yeah, that's one of the things we did look at. So when we do tests, right, we're down in Florida, we're also up in Michigan. I think probably one of the products you're talking about might be suppressed or some acid-based formulations. And you're absolutely right. The test we see, we're down in Florida where the sun is shining, that they're going to burn, they're going to do their thing because they need that heat, that temperature. We're up in Michigan, those acid-based formulations don't work. Harpe works both in cold and in hot temperatures. It works faster in the hot temperatures, but it works equally well. It takes a little bit longer to get the control we're after in those cooler temperatures, but we see very, very consistent control outcomes regardless of temperature.
Have you tried adding a surfactant in with the Harpe?
Oh yeah, all the formulations we use different, we do a lot of studies with different formulations, as well as with different surfactant adjuvant packages to figure out what works the best. That's a lot of the work we're doing now as we kind of get to this commercial ready phase, is okay, what works best with which, especially when we're in those combination products. So whether it's crop oil, or MSO, or different types of things, we're certainly testing those. So the formulations, the inert ingredients make them the formulations that spread well, spray nicely, get inside the leaves that we're after. So yeah, that's all part of the agronomic package, and will be on the labels when we develop them.
Do you have a cost comparison between Harpe and glyphosate?
Yeah, that is probably our major hurdle that we've overcome in the last 12+ months, is driving down that cost. So the formulations we're working with now we use 6 times less the amount of active ingredients we had when we first started, and that number is going to continue to drive down as we work on the various inert ingredients that really improve the performance. So when it's all said and done, we're going to be incredibly cost competitive, whether it's with a synthetic mix or as a standalone product. Obviously, standalone going to be a little bit more because that's more active ingredients involved there, but certainly cost competitive. Otherwise, we would have stopped a while ago. Well, if there's no other, got one in the back. Timeline to market. Again, from the fully organic natural products, we could actually walk out into the market and start selling right now because of that FIFA review that we already have, which is incredibly exciting when we think about it. In reality, we're going to start our divestment period and look to exit as an entity and hand this technology off over the next year. I would expect another year or so after that for anybody to take that over, ramp it up, and really see a marketplace entrance. So I don't think it'll be very long. From a scale standpoint, we'll probably see it start in maybe the home and garden market or organic conventional or organic regenerative acres and expand from there, because again, without the regulatory review process, they can move out to the market fairly quickly. Again, it's expectations, but thoughts on one. So.
Have you looked at applications in varying weather conditions? Do you need, hot, warmer, drier conditions to really get that, once that membrane breaks down to get desiccation, or have you tried it out in cooler, maybe more wet weather as well?
Yeah, so the heat certainly helps to get that membrane fluidity, to get them activated. The sun certainly helps. We made a trip over to India, brought some of the formulation with us. It was 136 degrees. They disappeared. So the heat helps, like it does for all herbicides. If you use glufosinate, right, a little persnickety if it's not 86 plus degrees. Right? So heat always helps, but at the same time, we've done a lot of work in cooler temperatures and see similar performance. Again, I think it just takes a little bit longer for the activity to fully kick in versus not working at all. Any other questions? If not, we'll be here throughout the most of today. Myself, Bill, feel free to stop us, ask us anything you like. Nothing's off limits, happy to chat. But again, thank you so much. Really appreciate the opportunity.